me get my page here. Okay, so we'll start with a motion or a nomination by the commission, and then we'll need a second on nominations for chair. Do we have any nominations for chair of the city commission?
I have a nomination for Darrell Hogan.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Freeman and a second by Maybe. Do we have any other nominations for chair? So we will have roll call, please.
Commissioner Sherwood?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Four.
Commissioner Freeman?
Four.
Commissioner Mayhew?
Four.
Commissioner Reed?
Motion passes. Thank you. So do we, next on our agenda then is to have our nominations for a vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair of the city commission?
I nominate Glenn Schwartz.
Second.
We have a motion by Newton and a second by Friedman. Do we have any other nominations? May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Hogan?
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz?
Four.
Commissioner Freeman?
Four.
Commissioner Mayhew?
Four.
Commissioner
Or motion passes. According to tradition, we have had our seats with new commissioners tending to go to the end. And then moving forward, I think we're in the same position as we have been. Is everyone comfortable? Okay, we'll stay where we are. All right. That's easy, thank you. And thanks for trusting me as chair. I appreciate it. And for Clinton. I would have nominated him as well. Next on our agenda, we have public comment. Be reminded to limit the items for comment on what we can, as a commission, supervise, control jurisdiction and advisory power over. And also don't forget that we need to keep the items to be discussed centered on things in the moment, or not in the moment, but what are not on the agenda in the future. Part of the agenda today. I can't say that very well today. So nothing in the agenda located in this agenda should be addressed during public comment. Thank you. That was hard to say. Do we have any public comment? Come on up. Say your name and address.
Hey everyone, I'm Cameron Taranchi. I'm the Energy Corps service member in Livingston at 223 South 5th Street. And I just wanted to let you guys know personally about the Solarize Livingston campaign that I'm helping run. It's for working with YBCC to make solar easier and more accessible for Livingston residents. And we have 2 events coming up that I just wanted to personally invite you guys to let you know about. I have flyers here that have all the information. And other than that, I'm going to email Michael and let him know that I want to give an update on my work that I've been doing for y'all at next commission's meeting. Yeah, so that's it.
Well, you got some further.
Yeah, just like a flyer.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep up the good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, Cameron, that I signed up.
Yeah, I saw you signed up.
I also signed up, so I don't know
Yeah.
if we need to start putting notices out the rest of you are.
I put it on my phone.
So we might have to, a bunch of us are, well, it's not a,
Rock, paper, scissors.
we'll be okay. He says we'll be okay. I want to thank you for being here and for coming so quickly. You introduced yourself and now you have things to share. And I think there's a lot of people in Livingston that are really excited to hear what you have to say. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, yes.
Any other public comment? Next, we have our consent items. Do we have a motion on consent items A, B, and C, or any consent items you would like to pull for discussion?
I move we approve consent items A and B.
So pulling C for discussion.
Yes.
So we have a motion to approve consent items A and B and pull consent item C for discussion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Maybe and a second by Mitz. Roll call, please.
Chair Huntley,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Tillman,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe,
Four.
Commissioner Evans.
Motion passes. And Warren, as far as discussion on consent item C, would you like to address that issue first, and then Michael, do you want to add to it? Whatever he,
The only reason I pulled it was in case anyone else had any questions, rather than doing a blanket approval. I've read the forms and I don't have any questions or problems with that.
I think you make a good point in just making sure that we understand the steps and process of this, the new board in a sense. So Michael, could you just sort of give us a synopsis of the board and
Sure, so this will actually appoint the 5-member board for the Tourism Business Improvement District. Once they're been appointed, then they will start with the process of creating their bylaws. Once those are approved, then they'll start operating according to their own bylaws. We've seen the drafts of the bylaws already. I don't see any problems with that going forward. There was no problem with any of the terms. If you're wondering why the terms are staggered the way they are, that's just state law for any BID. So that all the elections don't occur at one time. If you want to learn the formula behind who got what term, it's alphabetical order. So we just put them in alphabetical order and then assign those terms to them. So they will be coming up in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and then 2 4-year terms. And all elections from this point forward will be for a 4-year term, assuming that's what they write into their bylaws. So once this is done, it really turned over to the Tourism Business Improvement District themselves to come up with their own rules, and really the commission won't have much more of a role after that.
Yeah, that would be my question. What would her role after that be?
Really, I think it's approval of bylaws, and then it will only come to you if there's a change in, I think, in the actual fee for the Tourism Business Improvement District.
any other questions from the commission? Do we have a motion then on action or consent item C?
I move we approve consent item C.
Second.
We have a motion by Maybe and a second agreement for consent item C. Roll call, please.
Chair Huntley,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Evans,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe,
Four.
Commissioner Evans.
Yes.
Motion passes. Tonight, we have no proclamations and no scheduled public comments. We have one public hearing, or two public hearings, one public hearing and an ordinance together. Our first public hearing is a public hearing with Homeward Incorporated and HRDC plan to develop the Blue Sponge Flats, formerly Livingston Memorial Hospital Adaptive Reuse Project into affordable housing and solicit comments from the community on whether the proposed project meets the community housing needs. Mr. Cardos.
We will turn it over to Homer for their presentation. And then allow them to solicit public comments at that point.
Hi, my name is Julie Steitler. I'm with Homeward. I'm a housing project manager there. And as you all know, because you've heard about this project several times over the last 2 years, we're working with HRDC on this project, and the goal is to create affordable, or homes that people can afford to rent at the site of the old Livingston Memorial Hospital. We have permits. We have the cleanup all complete. There was quite a bit of hazardous material in the building, some that was expected and some that was a surprise. Snowy Mountain Development Corp. Provided us with a loan and grant. Well, technically they provided the property owner with a loan and grant to clean that up. We have expanded. We originally were gonna have 34 units, apartments there. Now we're gonna have 37. The little commercial building that's just next to it, sort of to the west, where Western Montana Mental Health used to be, is now gonna be 3 affordable apartments, or apartments that people can afford to rent. And we hope that now that the cleanup is done, we can move forward pretty much full steam ahead. We still have to close on the partnership. We expect to do that by the end of the month or the beginning of February. We're waiting on a couple of critical path items, one of which is the National Park Service approval of the Part 2 nomination, which would allow for historic tax credits, because the building is now on the National Register of Historic Places, one of the few mid-century modern buildings, and the first one in Montana. So yay, Livingston, always the forerunners. Anyway, I'm here if anybody has any questions about how this project can help meet Livingston's housing needs.
Why don't we first leave it, or open it to public comment? Do you have to open the public hearing? I open this public hearing to discuss Homeward Bound, or Homeward Inc. and the proposed project. Do we have any public comment for this project? So no public comment, we'll close the hearing. This public hearing is closed. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Warren?
I just have 2 questions. Who is the partnership?
So, as you know, this is a low-income housing tax credit project. And when you have a low-income housing tax credit project, you typically have an investor who's in a limited partner. In this case, it's U.S. Bancorp Community Development Corporation. They've done several projects in Montana. And doing a tax credit project in a community helps them meet a Community Redevelopment Act requirement, so a CRA need. And HRDC is also, they will be the administrative general partner, and Homeward will be the managing general partner.
Thank you.
Technically, we create single-purpose entities that act in the partnership roles, but we're the sole members of those LLCs, so.
And just one other quick one. Where's Oswood Construction Company?
They are located in Great Falls. We didn't have any general contractors from Livingston submit a bid. And because the project also has state home funds, it's required to be an open bid process. So anybody who could qualify, and that is usually just based on bonding capacity, was eligible to submit a bid.
Thank you.
Would you stay up here for a few more minutes? Would you repeat your name again?
I'm Julie Steitler, Stiteler. And I should mention, there are some local subcontractors that are working with Oswood Construction Company that will be working on the project.
Has Homeward worked with Oswood before?
We haven't. They have bid on a couple of our other projects, but we have to take the lowest qualified
Right, no,
bidder.
yeah,
so.
I'm just curious if
But
you
they
have
have,
any background with them.
they have good references, and they have constructed multifamily projects before, and they have worked on historic structures before. So those were important qualifications that they meet. They're not debarred. We did a debarment check because this does have a flow through federal funding, so.
Well, I looks good to me. And yeah, yes, I think you're meeting the needs of the community definitely with this project. It's a shame it's had to take so long, but
Yes,
it is going, at least it's going forward, so.
it was not ideal, but we're really
Right.
anxious to get started now.
I have a question too, or a statement. So I guess my question, Julie, would be to ask, how do you think this project's going overall? Because we have been, well, some of us, the three of us have been at the start of this project, working alongside you and watching the process. How do you feel it's going and where, you know, some timelines or anything like that? Has it been a positive? Okay, tell us about it.
There have been some challenges with this project, most of which are not related to Livingston or the actual project. But low-income housing tax credits, because it's part of a tax process, when the federal government does tax reform, it changes that whole picture of how tax credits work and whether there's a benefit to investors or if the benefit is enough to attract them to smaller communities. A lot of Montana communities have that problem that investors don't have a large CRA need, so they don't find a lot of value in the credits. But US Bancorp is a very good partner and they provide very good credit pricing. Then with the tariff talk and all of that federal stuff that was going on with tariffs, that really created an environment this summer of very volatile construction costs, especially in smaller, more rural communities. So that was a negative. But the community has been so positive and so supportive. And we hear from people, you know, at least once a week, somebody saying, when are you going to be done? When is it going to be available? So we certainly are seeing that need and seeing people being interested in living there. We think that it will lease up very quickly. And we're really hoping that people will find it a charming and unique place to live because, you know, it's the hospital where some of them were probably born, or maybe their parents were born, or maybe they had their appendix out there or something. So, which is not really something memorable, but you know, it's part of your community. So, and the cleanup has been really good. It seems to have kind of changed the ambiance of the building. It has really helped to have all that asbestos gone. It just feels much better now.
Well, one positive I have noticed, I guess, is we often, when there's requests for building, say, multifamily, there's often resistance. I have not heard a negative thing about this project. And I actually bought a house in that neighborhood recently versus, you know, thinking, oh, I don't want to move into this situation. I'm looking forward to having that completed as a neighborhood person living there. So I'm excited personally. Thank you for your hard work.
I'm also excited. I think it's fantastic, and I want to thank you and all the partners for sticking through it, even though it sounds like it's been really frustrating, like across the board for the reasons you mentioned, it's a difficult time to build affordable housing. And when I see these prices and think of the number of families that will have safe places to live, I think, and I was just telling Warren the other day, hearing a story from a citizen in Livingston, how the rent's going at $800, you know, with a new lease. And I think like we really need prices like this where people can afford to live here and work here. So thank you.
Right. That's the best. When you can have people who work in your community also live in your community, it's better for the whole community. So
So thank you. You're welcome. It'll be fun to see the MCM interiors. Are you gonna stick true with that?
but we'll be back to keep you guys updated. Maybe we'll have a little tour if you guys are interested.
Would love it.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Julie.
Especially now knowing that it's mid-century.
Next on our agenda, we have ordinance number 2077, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending ordinance number 1869, entitled, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston establishing its rules of procedure for conducting city business in a fair and open meeting which encourages public participation in the decision-making process of local government as codified by Article 11, Section 2-10 through 2-35 of the Livingston Municipal Code by removing sections of the existing ordinances for the purpose of increasing efficiency and flexibility, changing the meeting start time and moving deleted sections to a policy manual for city commissioners. Mr. Cardis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this was already addressed in the last meeting. Should be the second time you've seen this. This will actually be the second reading in the public hearing. If passed tonight, then this will take effect in 30 days. It will allow us to be a little more flexible with some of the procedures for our meetings and allow us to incorporate those sections into a policy manual versus an actual ordinance that takes multiple times to try and modify. So no changes from what you saw last time, just removing those sections that will later be placed into a policy manual and incorporated into just our meeting policy.
And just to help people understand it is for meeting times to change, we had to do an ordinance change. So if this was our approach to help deal with those kind of management issues versus putting it into a major change in an ordinance. So do we have any public comment on ordinance number 20? We do? Yes, that's right. I open this public hearing on ordinance number 2077. Any public comment on ordinance number 2077? This public hearing on ordinance 2077 is closed. Commissioners, any comments or questions? No concerns with anything or things you'd like to see change? I agree. I think that it's a good direction. I think commissions down the way will appreciate it as well. So do we have a motion on ordinance number 2077?
I'll make a motion for ordinance 2077.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Maybe. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Herbert?
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz?
Or
Commissioner Clayton?
Four.
Four.
Motion passes. So we have 30 days.
It will take effect in 30 days, so probably the second meeting in February will be the first meeting with the 5:30 start time.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is we have no ordinances and no resolutions. We have 2 action items tonight. Our first action item is to discuss, approve, deny, scheduling commissioner's tour of the new water reclamation facility. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on trying to get a tour in?
I'm relatively free anytime.
What's the
I'll be looking at this
expected
week.
length of time it will take to tour?
Shannon,
Excuse me?
how long will it take?
We could do it in probably an hour and a half. Would be an abbreviated tour. It'd be nice to have 2 hours.
Well, what are your thoughts?
I got something blocked out at 10 a.m. Tomorrow. See, I'm not sure what it is when we do it then.
You're funny, right?
Yeah.
What's your
Assistant
flexi-
principal at a middle school.
Oh, yeah.
And throw
I'm
that
sorry,
down
yeah.
on me?
what's your flexibility like as a
Yeah.
principal of the middle school?
You're the problem child here.
I am. 2 hours. I hate to put it out there way far out, but I don't know if Thursday I have a meeting at 3:45, so then that would be a long. Shannon would have to stay late.
It's my understanding that Mr. Pettit is bringing his science classes to the facility next week, towards the end of the next week as well.
I probably know this from an email, but whoops.
I think that, you said Thursday, this Thursday? I think that would be hard for me. That's okay, this Thursday.
Do you remember which day we had?
Next Thursday-ish, I think, is when they're gonna be out.
Do with all those kids.
That'd be fun.
No, that'd be fun,
That would
actually, do it
actually
with the
be
kids.
cool.
I'd like to do that.
I could double
Yeah,
my job right there.
Yeah.
Be good.
No, we could work that, I would like to do that.
Thursday possibly? Do you remember if it's like a afternoon, morning?
I don't, because Mr. Pettit's been working directly with Dan and Russell and Dominic and staff there,
Okay,
so I apologize.
let's plan on tentative next Thursday.
Like the 17th, you mean? Like during the day, during school hours sometime.
Shoot, I gotta be at Billings all day Thursday.
Yeah, I got both.
Get serious.
That's about the only thing that I got holding me up in my head.
Would you rather not
We'll
a
check with
problem?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, come up.
Quitting, you're the problem.
And Shannon, if we need to split it up, we could do it.
We
twice.
absolutely could. We have staff there all the time. We'd be happy to accommodate any schedule.
Well, my preference, I would like to do it with the kids, but
Yeah.
if I know that day out, I just let them tag along with them. So.
That's the day that you're gonna be out of town.
Oh, yeah, is it Thursday that
Yeah.
they were doing?
I can
Oh,
certainly make that confirmation tomorrow, and I can let the city manager know, and he could pass that along.
okay.
But
Another day that I know works for me in the afternoon, I could move things around, would be or Tuesday, next Tuesday. But if,
Okay.
yeah, we'll have to notice it if there's, you know, 3 or more.
So we're just looking at something, we're not making a decision.
And we're together.
What's the date now, 15th?
Yeah, looking at the 15th, I have a 1:00 meeting.
What time were we planning the,
Oh,
What
So-
time of day, Joel, are you thinking for?
Like afternoon, I could probably get, 2 or 3, 2 o'clock maybe.
that would work for me.
Should we put that as tentative?
Tuesday, January 15th from 2 to 4. Tentatively.
Shannon?
yes,
We've heard so many good things about it. Our expectations are high.
That's
And how wonderful this is going to be.
And yet you're still gonna be amazed.
I am going to be amazed. See what I mean? I think it will be great. Actually.
So we'll start with that.
Okay.
And I suppose if one group wanted to go with the kids or with the students, we could make that work as well. So if you.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'll see if I can't get on my Billings thing. I think I can.
Alright, done. Next on our agenda is action item B, to approve, discuss, deny scheduling commissioners work session regarding City of Livingston strategic plan. Mr. Carney's gonna let you share that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you should have all received a copy of the draft strategic plan for the city that we started almost a year ago now with MSU. That is the staff's filling in of the strategies and actions that fulfill the mission, vision, values, and goals that the commission came up with. That is now in the phase where we can release it for public comment. I've been sending it around to as many people as I can think of. I think starting sometime later this week, we'll have it available on the city website for people to be able to actually make public comment by email to a special email account. So then we'll include those in future agenda packets, so people that don't have time to actually come to meetings can still provide input that will be provided to you in packets. However, we thought it might be helpful if we schedule the work session as a commission, so you can ask any questions that you have on the strategic plan and also take in public comment at those times as well. So I would recommend we do those off cycle with the actual commission meetings, Tuesday or Thursday evening, starting at 5:30 or whatever you wanted. And just open it up for your questions, any clarifications on why the staff came up with the answers we did, and then to take any public questions or comments at that time.
I have a question before we go forward with the discussion. Strategic plan sort of reflects out as far as us planning other things and planning ahead for, our crossing discussions and such because they're related. So sooner is better.
Yes, so the strategic plan really is the foundational document. All the other documents are going to flow from that. They should be aligned with that. So the strategic plan should show everything we plan to do in the next 3 to 5 years. And as people look at, as we develop our impact fee study, as we develop our growth policies, we develop other documents, they will use the strategic plan to determine what they should be. Because the strategic plan really is the vision for at least the city organization from the commission with the actions filled in by the staff.
So the point is we need to get moving, right? So what are your thoughts on strategic plan? Do we want to have a couple meetings? Split it up, make them shorter? Meet a couple nights, a couple evenings? Or do you want one longer meeting? What's your thoughts?
I would be, all for a longer meeting,
Like one at this point?
one and then leave it open if for any reason,
We don't finish up
something
at a time.
isn't covered or isn't understandable or understood.
Add another one in.
If necessary, yeah, yes.
Have any of you been commissioners when they've gone for a strategic plan in the past?
We
Right.
created it.
I was just wondering what amount of time. you're
Any
thinking when
thoughts
you
on
say-
that, Michael?
Well, this is the first one, so there has been no previous strategic plan.
Yeah.
So you get.
And how fast can we get through it?
So maybe 2 meetings would be better.
I think it's gonna take at least 2 hours just to go over it.
Go over it.
It's short as far as how many pages it is, but it contains a lot of information and there are a lot of priorities that are fit into that 22 pages. There's a lot of heft to it, so.
One thing I was thinking about 2 meetings would be if there was a lot of heft to it, it gives us some time to process between.
Digest it and then get back into it.
Yeah.
Probably recommend 2 2-hour meetings.
I feel better about that, yeah. Anything after 2, I just. Attention span.
There is no definite timeline on this, it's just something that will be used, so the
Right, so-
closer we can get it to a final state, the better off we are.
And for clarification, can you say who's going to be at that meeting when we're going over it? Is it just the commission and you, or, I mean, it's open to the public and,
It'll be open to the public, so just the commission and, whichever staff members we want there will absolutely be,
so they'll be available, staff would be available.
yes.
So we have a couple of Tuesdays this month. If we wanted to start with one of them, so we have regular commission meeting on the 22nd. So now we have the tour on the 15th. If that's what we go with, unless we move that for some other reason. So did we want to continue in just Tuesday meetings?
Or like for this Thursday evenings too. That works.
What if we did the off Tuesdays from commission meetings?
Let's do it the 15th. I mean, we have a wastewater treatment plant thing, but
And then
Big
just do a
deal.
break after the waste,
Yeah.
so
it's
people
done
can eat
full,
and.
so. We're looking at 5:30, right?
And plan the 29th as well, just if this time, so
Yeah.
we'll do the 15th or the 29th.
And it's a work session, so you can pick the start time if you would rather start earlier at 5. It's just up to you on when you prefer to start.
Tacos? It's for 5, you were talking about dinner. 15th and 20th, I think, will be good meeting.
I would say 5 o'clock if we can.
Okay.
I could do that, 5 o'clock. On the 15th and the 29th.
Then people can come after work if there's still time to come after work and participate. Okay. Got it?
What's the 29th?
15th and 20th.
So any other comments on strategic plan? Alright. We are open to city manager comments, and it's way below your time limit.
It is, and I have 2 short comments for you, and they are actually related. So yesterday, we finalized our bonding for the URA. We had that set of criteria that you had given us the last time for the pricing committee. We were actually able to come in below all those items. The pricing was actually fairly favorable. So the total amount of the bond for the URA, and I'll give you documentation for this for the next meeting, but just to give you a quick overview, it was just over $2,046,000, which will actually provide $1.8 million to the project for this coming year and give us the debt service reserve as well. So that was some good news. And tied to that news is the bidding for the spring work on the end of Main Street is already open. It should be closed by the 25th, and hopefully we will bring you a recommendation for a contract in the first meeting in February. So all that's moving forward pretty rapidly.
Melissa?
No comment.
Lauren?
Thank you.
No, I just want, a special day yesterday, I was up in Helena to see my daughter Lori start the new legislation season, and it's a beautiful building. If people haven't gotten up to see our state capitol, and it's doing a great job up there for us, so appreciate that. That's it.
Did you hear where that building carried?
Yeah. Listen now.
I just have one thing, listening session, 9 a.m. this Saturday at the Liston Food Resource Center. I will not be able to attend, but Mel will, and Melissa, and you guys can fight about it. Warren just want to do it.
I can do it.
Very well. I'll make sure it gets into the briefs tomorrow, and that Mr. McCormick knows about it.
Okay.
And somebody else.
And the door's open.
And the door is open.
The small spot.
Other than that, I have nothing.
And the only thing I have is that I start my thank you to the community next meeting. Every second meeting of the month, or, third Tuesday, I will give a little shout out to someone in our community or some people in our community that are making a difference and showing them how much we appreciate them, or I appreciate them. I can't speak for the whole commission. I think you'll agree. Do we have a motion from the commission on adjournment?
So moved.
We have a motion by
Second.
Freeman, second by Schwartz. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Herbert?
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz?
4.
Commissioner Freeman?
4.
Commissioner Maybe?
4.
Commissioner
4.
This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is adjourned at 7:15.
Joy now.
That's it.
Right on the nose.